there's a lot of publicity around the monk competition, a lot of exposure. Here it is, more than a decade later. Looking back on the experience, how has it affected you? Is obviously in some positive ways, but what do you think is the net result in your career of winning the monk competition?
Well, it definitely helped. I think it definitely introduced some people to my name and who I was. Um, there's a funny story. I know you have a relationship with Sonny Rollins, right?
I do.
A few months after that, maybe in the spring of that next year, three guys I knew went golfing out in New Jersey, I think it was. And they said, "Hey, you mind if we have a fourth guy join you?" And they're like, "Sure." And about the middle of the 18 holes, they find one of them realizes, a couple of them were big music fans. They realized it's Sonny Rollins, and they said, "Oh, I'm friends with John Gordon, this guy." And it's like, "Oh, I heard about that guy. I haven't heard him play, but." I said, "Wow, if Sonny heard of me from that, that's kind of a cool thing." Yeah, I mean, it didn't make me rich and famous, Brett, but it definitely gave me a little more exposure. It it generated some more gigs for me. It was interesting. I recently played with Seamus Blake, who also won the Monk competition. He was here in Winnipeg with a group with Bryn Roberts, and Bryn had Quincy Davis and I join the group for a couple of tunes. And he was another guy that won that I love his playing. John Arabagon is a guy that won it recently and actually came and took a couple lessons with me after he had done so, which I was honored that he sought me out. And he's done really well for himself. Uh, you know, it did open some doors for me. It absolutely did. I was some certain record labels and clubs reached out to me that probably wouldn't have otherwise. And yeah, it was a nice kind of bump in my career as it was at the time.
How did you feel about being in a competition? My
Yeah.
friend Dave Liebman is totally against all competition. Feels that it's in opposition to what jazz represents. But we know from the past that competition has always been part of the music. There were great cutting contests back in the jam sessions in Kansas City and beyond. In that monk competition, did you feel pressured? What was that like for you?
I think it's a really good point and really good question, Brett. First of all, I don't know Dave all that well, but I agree with the sentiment in general. But I would say that I think anybody that gets a little notoriety in this music, any way they get it, I think it's good to support that. Anything that brings notoriety to the music ultimately can be a positive thing. I wasn't particularly nervous when I participated as a player in '96. I felt a lot of camaraderie with all my friends there. Guys that I was getting to know or knew really well, like Joel Fromm and John Ellis and Jimmy Green, and guys who are great players. And the first thing I said when I won the thing is I said, "Look, I got lucky today. Any of these players are deserving. I could name you a dozen or 2 dozen others easily in my mind that are deserving of some acclaim and an opportunity like this. I'm thankful for it. But if we can bring positive attention to jazz, if that's the upshot of it, then it can be a good thing." And as a kind of coda to that, a couple of years ago, I guess it was the fall of 2012, I was asked to be in the house band for the drum competition with a great band, Jeff Keezer, and a great bass player in Michigan. I'm spacing on his name. I'm going to pick myself later. I was much more nervous when I did that, Brett, because first of all, I think we had a 9 or 10 hour rehearsal learning 13 drummers' music the day before the semifinals. And then I think we played for about 7 hours, maybe with a break in between, because it was about a 20-plus minute set, and then with changes and stuff, it just took forever with 13 guys. That was a lot more nerve-wracking for me because I just kept thinking, I don't want to, miss something here on this guy's music that I'm seeing, almost for the first time. Um, but I wasn't nervous when I did it, and I did feel a kind of acceptance. And basically, what I tell my friends and my students if they participate in something like that is just go and have fun and let it go, because there's so much you're not in control of. But I was honored. I got to meet and talk to all, Jackie Mack and Lovano, who I knew. I knew both those guys pretty well. I'd never met Wayne Shorter before that. Josh, I played with and recorded with a little bit previous to that. Jimmy Heath, I'd seen a little bit. I mean, but it's just a lot of luck, I mean, it really is, because there's so many deserving players. I called Mark Turner when I came back, and his wife picked up the phone, and I said, well, if it was up to me, I would have just given this to Mark, But I could name many musicians, many saxophonists that I would like to see get notoriety, and in some cases they certainly have. In the case of a guy like Mark, he certainly has.